The binder sits on their polished coffee table, its white plastic gleaming under the lamplight. On the spine, my mother's neat, cursive handwriting spells out "Our Golden Years." It looks benign, hopeful even. But as I stare at it from the stiff armchair they always insist I take, a cold dread snakes its way up my spine. I know what's inside that binder without even opening it. It's not a plan for their future, it's a blueprint for mine. My father clears his throat, a sound like gravel rolling downhill that has commanded my attention since I was a child. "Clara, thank you for coming. We're so glad you're here to help us navigate this next chapter." He smiles, a wide, practiced smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. He's a man who has always treated life as a series of projects to be managed and people as resources to be allocated. For as long as I can remember, I have been his most reliable resource. My mother, Catherine, pats the empty space beside her on the floral sofa. "Come sit with us, dear. We're a team after all." The word team hangs in the air, thick and heavy with unspoken history. In our family, team meant that I did the work and they took the credit. It meant I stayed home from the school dance to babysit my brother Leo while they attended a dinner party. It meant I used my first part-time job earnings to buy my sister, Mia, a new winter coat because they'd forgotten. They called it maturity, responsibility. I called it my childhood. I give a tight-lipped smile and stay put. The few feet of carpet between us feel like a necessary buffer. Leo and Mia are here too, lounging on the other sofa, scrolling through their phones. They see this as just another Sunday dinner, another routine family meeting. They have no idea they're here as props, a living testament to my supposed competence. "As you know," my father continues, flipping open the binder with a decisive snap, "my mother and I have officially retired. We've worked hard our whole lives, and now it's time to enjoy the fruits of our labor." He pauses for effect, looking around the room for nods of agreement. He gets them, of course. My mother picks up the narrative thread seamlessly. "But it's a lot to manage, honey. The investments, the pensions, the healthcare portals. It's all so complicated. We were talking, and your father had a wonderful idea." He beams at him, and he puffs out his chest. "Who better to manage all of this for us than our own Clara? You've always been so brilliant with numbers and organization." The compliment lands like a stone in my gut. It's the same compliment they gave me when, at 13, I created a color-coded schedule for the family's laundry. The same one I received at 16 when I balanced their checkbook because they couldn't be bothered. They weren't praising my skill, they were praising my utility. Leo looks up from his phone, a flicker of interest in his eyes. "Yeah, Clara, that's perfect. You could probably get them a better return on their stocks than that guy they've been using." He says it casually, as if he's suggesting I pick up a gallon of milk on my way home. He has no concept of the hours, the mental load, the legal and financial responsibility they are trying to place on my shoulders. Why would he? When he was struggling with algebra, I was the one who sat with him for hours, patiently explaining equations until my own homework was forgotten. Mia chimes in, not even looking up from her screen. "And you could help Mom schedule her doctor's appointments. You know how she gets the dates mixed up." And there it is, the full picture. They don't just want a financial manager, they want a secretary, a caregiver, a project manager for their lives. The same job I held from the age of 10 until the day I moved out, only this time it's for them, not their other children. The silence in the room is expectant. They're all looking at me, waiting for me to nod, to smile, to say, "Of course, how can I help?" It's the line I've been programmed to deliver my entire life. My own life feels small and distant in this moment. The quiet evenings in my apartment, the promotion I'm working towards, the pottery class I finally signed up for, all of it is about to be consumed by their needs. My hard-won peace is about to be paved over to build their retirement paradise. I feel the familiar prickle of tears behind my eyes, the hot surge of resentment that I've learned to swallow for decades. But this time, something is different. Maybe it's the sheer audacity of the binder, the pre-printed tabs with my name on them. Or maybe it's the fact that I'm not a child anymore, and the cost of their comfort is no longer my future, but my present. My hands are trembling slightly as I reach into my purse on the floor beside me. I pull out a folded sheaf of papers. It's not as impressive as their binder. It's just a few pages, printed on my home printer, held together with a simple paperclip. But to me, it represents a debt that has been accruing for nearly 2 decades. I'm glad you brought up the subject of my work for this family, because before we discuss any future arrangements, we need to settle my outstanding invoice for past services rendered. I place the papers on the coffee table, right next to their gleaming white binder. The room falls silent. 4 pairs of eyes stare at the document. My father frowns, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. Invoice? Clara, what kind of joke is this? It's not a joke, I reply, my gaze unwavering. It's an itemized bill for 18 years of unpaid childcare and household management. The air crackles with a tension so thick I can almost taste it. My mother's smile has vanished, replaced by a mask of disbelief. Leo and Mia had finally put down their phones, their expressions a mixture of confusion and dawning horror. For the first time in my life, I have deviated from the script. And I have a feeling the performance is about to get very, very real. I spent the last week on this, not sleeping, my mind a whirlwind of memories I'd long suppressed. Each line item on that invoice was a ghost of my past, a moment of my childhood reclaimed from the fog of obligation. It started the night they called to announce the family meeting. I'd hung up the phone and felt that old, familiar weight settle on my shoulders, the suffocating blanket of their expectations. But this time, instead of succumbing to it, a spark of defiance flickered within me. I sat at my kitchen table, the glow of my laptop screen illuminating my face in the dark. I opened a new spreadsheet. The first category was easy: childcare services. I thought back, trying to pinpoint when it started. Was it the day Mia was born, when I was 10, and my mother handed her to me saying, "You're such a natural little mommy"? I typed, primary childcare for 2 siblings. I researched the average babysitting rates for those years, factoring in the lack of weekends off, the emergency sick days when I had to stay home from school because one of them had a fever. The numbers began to climb, a dizzying ascent that made my breath catch. The next category was academic tutoring. I remembered Leo's tears of frustration over his multiplication tables, the feel of the pencil in my hand as I drew diagrams for him, long after my own eyes were burning with fatigue. I remembered editing Mia's college application essays, strengthening her prose, while my own creative writing aspirations gathered dust in a notebook. I added hours for homework help, project assistance, and test preparation. Each entry was a small cut, a reminder of a part of myself I'd sacrificed on the altar of their convenience. Then came the hardest part to quantify: household management. How do you put a price on being the family alarm clock, ensuring everyone was up and ready on time? How do you bill for mediating sibling squabbles, for being the keeper of secrets, the family therapist who was never off the clock? I listed tasks: meal preparation, grocery list management, laundry coordination, scheduling appointments. I found average salaries for household managers and personal assistants and calculated a conservative hourly rate. This section was the longest, a testament to the invisible labor that had held our chaotic household together. The final category was simply titled emotional labor. This was the cost of soothing my mother's anxieties, of absorbing my father's work frustrations, of being the stable center around which their emotional lives orbited. It was the price of listening, of comforting, of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I couldn't put a number on that, so I left it as a line item with the words incalculable written next to it. As I compiled the list, the memories were sharp and painful. I remembered being 15, standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes from a dinner party I was too young to attend, but old enough to clean up after. Through the window, I could see my friends' cars driving past, heading to the movies. I remembered the burning shame of having to tell my teacher I didn't finish my history paper because my sister had a last-minute panic attack about her recital and needed me. My parents praised me for being so supportive. My teacher had just seen an irresponsible student. When I was done, the spreadsheet glowed with a final staggering number at the bottom, a 6-figure sum that represented a life's worth of service. It was an absurd number, a number I never expected them to pay, because it was never about the money. It was about the accounting. It was about making the invisible visible. It was proof. Now, in the suffocating silence of their living room, my father picks up the invoice as if it might bite him. His eyes scan the first page, his brow furrowed deeper with every line he reads. Childcare at $10 an hour? Clara, this is insane. We gave you a home. We fed you, we clothed you. That was your chore, your contribution to the family. A contribution is mowing the lawn, I state, my voice gaining strength. Raising your other 2 children is a job you outsourced to me without pay. My mother snatches the papers from his hand. Her face, usually composed, is blotchy with indignation. How could you throw this in our faces? All the sacrifices we made? What sacrifices? I interrupt, the question sharp and clear. For once, I don't soften my tone. The sacrifice of your evenings, which you got back because I was the built-in babysitter? The sacrifice of your peace of mind, which you had because I was managing the household chaos? You didn't sacrifice. You delegated. Leo finally speaks, his voice a bewildered stammer. Clara, I don't understand. You always seemed happy to help. That simple, innocent statement is what finally breaks the dam. A bitter laugh escapes my lips. Happy, Leo? I was 10. I wasn't happy to help. I was told to help. There's a difference. Did you know I missed my own 8th grade graduation party because you got the flu and mom and dad didn't want to cancel their weekend trip? I spent the night holding a cool cloth to your head and cleaning up after you. Were you happy then? I bet you were. Leo flinches, his eyes falling to the floor. Of course he doesn't. He was the one being cared for. The burden of memory always falls on the caregiver. Mia looks at me, her eyes wide with a dawning horrified realization. She was always the more sensitive one. She looks from the invoice to my face, and I can see the gears turning in her head, recontextualizing her entire childhood. The college tours, she whispers, almost to herself. You didn't come on my college tours. I say softly, no, I didn't. Dad said it was too expensive for all of us to go, so I stayed home and worked extra shifts at the diner to help pay for your application fees. My mother's face hardens. The shock is wearing off, replaced by the cold, familiar armor of maternal martyrdom. So that's it then. You've been keeping a tally all these years, holding on to all this bitterness? We thought we raised you to be generous, not a bookkeeper of grievances. You raised me to be a parent, I correct her, my voice dropping low, each word deliberate. And parents deserve to be compensated for their labor. You want me to be your retirement manager? Fine. The fee for my services is that you acknowledge the debt you already owe me. Not in money, in truth. Look at that number, both of you. Look at it and understand that is the price of the childhood I didn't get to have. That is my severance pay for a job I am officially resigning from, effective immediately.
My father throws the papers down on the table. This is blackmail. It's emotional blackmail. No, I say, standing up, the stiff armchair groaning in protest. This is a bill, and it is long overdue. The silence that follows my departure is the loudest sound I've ever heard. I walk out of their front door without looking back. The cool night air feels like the first breath of a new life. The click of the door shutting behind me is a period at the end of a long, painful chapter. I get into my car, and for a moment, I just sit in the darkness, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The adrenaline recedes, leaving a hollow, trembling emptiness in its wake. I half expect one of them to run out, to bang on the window, to scream or cry or demand I come back inside. But there's only silence. The house remains lit, a perfect little diorama of a family frozen in a moment of crisis I created. The drive home is a blur. My mind is a chaotic slideshow of their faces. My father's shock hardening into fury. My mother's disbelief curdling into wounded pride. Leo's confusion. Mia's dawning horror. I feel a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. The fear is a primal one. The fear of a child who has just defied their parents, severing a tie that felt as essential as breathing. But the exhilaration is new. It's the wild, heady feeling of a locked cage door swinging open. I didn't just walk out of their house, I walked out of the role they had cast me in since birth.
When I get back to my apartment, the quiet feels different. It's not loneliness, it's sovereignty. I walk through my small space, touching the spines of my books, the smooth surface of my pottery wheel in the corner. This is my life. A life I built for myself in the slivers of time I could steal back from them. And now, all my time is my own. The thought is so vast, so overwhelming, it makes me dizzy. The first wave of retaliation comes the next morning, not as a direct assault, but as a carefully orchestrated flanking maneuver. The phone rings, and it's my Aunt Carol, my mother's sister. Her voice is syrupy with concern. "Clara, honey, your mother called me. She's absolutely devastated. She told me what you did. How could you be so cruel?" I grip the phone, my knuckles white. The flying monkeys have been released. "Aunt Carol, you weren't there. You don't know the whole story." "I know that your parents are good people who love you," she says, her tone shifting from concern to condescension. "And you presented them with some kind of ridiculous bill after everything they've done for you? It's a slap in the face. You're tearing this family apart over some perceived childhood slight." Perceived slight? The words echo in my ears. The years of my life minimized to a petty grievance? It wasn't a slight, I say, my voice dangerously calm. It was my entire childhood. I'm sorry Mom is upset, but I will not apologize for telling the truth. I end the call before she can respond, my heart hammering against my ribs. The calls continue throughout the week. An uncle who tells me I need to learn to forgive and forget, a cousin who says I'm being selfish and dramatic. Each conversation follows the same script, one clearly provided by my mother. I am the villain, the ungrateful daughter, the source of all this new, unpleasant conflict. They don't want to understand. They just want the disruption to stop. They want me to go back to being the quiet, compliant cog that kept the family machine running smoothly. The most painful call comes from Leo. He sounds torn, confused. "Clara, Mom and Dad are a mess. They said they're going to have to sell the house if their finances aren't managed properly. Is that what you want?" The manipulation is so transparent, it's almost laughable. "Leo, Dad was a senior partner at his firm. They are not in financial jeopardy. They just don't want the inconvenience of managing their own lives. And they're using you to make me feel guilty." "But they're old, Clara. We're supposed to take care of them." "I did take care of them. And you, and Mia. I did my time. My service is complete. Now, for the first time, they get to be parents and you get to be a son. You should try it. It might be illuminating. But it's Mia who surprises me. She texts me a week later, a simple message. Can we get coffee? Just us. We meet at a neutral cafe downtown, a place with no memories attached. She looks smaller than I remember, her shoulders slumped. She doesn't meet my eye as she stirs her latte. I've been thinking, she says, finally, her voice quiet, about what you said, about the college tours and other stuff. She looks up and her eyes are glistening with unshed tears. I remember that recital. My costume ripped right before I went on stage. I was hysterical. You found a safety pin and fixed it right there in the wings. You calmed me down. You told me I'd be brilliant. Mom and Dad were in the front row. They didn't even know anything was wrong. I nod slowly, the memory returning with a sharp pang. I remember. You were just always there, she continues, her voice breaking, like a permanent fixture, like the sun coming up. I never thought about what it cost you. I never realized that every time you were there for me, you were missing out on being somewhere for yourself. I am so sorry, Clara. The apology lands in the center of my chest, a warm, soothing balm on a wound I didn't even know was still open. It's the first time anyone in my family has ever truly acknowledged my sacrifice. It's not the grand reckoning I staged in the living room, but a quiet moment of connection, of seeing and being seen. It's more than I ever expected. They're not going to get it, are they? She asks, wiping a tear from her cheek. Mom and Dad, they're never going to see it. No, I say, reaching across the table and squeezing her hand. I don't think they will. Their world is built on the story that they were good parents. My truth would shatter that, and they will protect that story at all costs. That conversation is a turning point. It doesn't fix everything, but it plants a seed. The family narrative, once a monolithic truth, now has a crack in it. My relationship with Mia begins to slowly, carefully rebuild, this time on a new foundation of honesty. My parents, meanwhile, try a different strategy. The anger and accusations didn't work, so they switched to feigned incompetence. My mother calls me, her voice trembling. Clara, I can't figure out how to pay the property tax bill online. It's all so confusing. I'm worried we're going to get a penalty. The old Clara would have sighed, taken down the website and her password, and spent her lunch break handling it. The new Clara takes a deep breath. I understand it can be tricky, Mom. I found a great tech support class for seniors at the local community center. I just texted you the link to sign up. There's a stunned silence on the other end of the line before she hangs up without another word. I've not only refused to do the task, I've given them a tool to do it themselves. I am no longer solving their problems. I am returning their problems to them, the rightful owners. It feels both terrifying and incredibly empowering. Slowly, day by day, I build my new life. I go to my pottery class on Tuesdays, my hands covered in clay, creating something just for the joy of it. I book a weekend trip to the coast, something I never would have done before, always feeling like I needed to be on call. I start to notice the space in my own head, the mental real estate that used to be occupied by their schedules, their worries, their needs. It's quiet in there, and in the quiet, I can finally hear myself. One evening, my father shows up at my door, unannounced. He looks older, more tired than I've ever seen him. He's holding a small, misshapen pot, one of my first creations from my class that I'd left at their house. Your mother was going to throw this out, he said, his voice gruff. Figured you might want it. I take it from him. We stand in the awkward silence of my doorway. This is it, I think. This is the moment for the apology, the breakthrough. He clears his throat. Your mother's hip is acting up again.
Her doctor is on vacation and she needs a referral to a specialist. The insurance company needs a pre-authorization. You were always so good at navigating that stuff. My heart sinks. He didn't come to apologize. He didn't come to connect. He came with another task. He hasn't heard a word I've said. The bill, the confrontation, the silence was just a temporary inconvenience to him, a tantrum to be waited out. He's here now to see if the tantrum is over, if normal service can be resumed. I look down at the clumsy pot in my hands, its imperfections a perfect reflection of my own messy, beautiful, and finally, mine journey. I look back up at my father, standing on my doorstep, expecting me to let him in and solve his problem. And for the first time, I see him not as an all-powerful patriarch, but as a man who is utterly lost without his most valuable resource. I give him a small, sad smile. Dad, it sounds like you and Mom have a project to work on together. I start to close the door, gently but firmly. I wish you the best of luck with it. The look on his face as the door clicks shut is one of pure, unadulterated shock. He simply cannot compute a world in which I am not available to him. As I lean against the door, the finality of the act washes over me. The war isn't over. It may never be. But I have won the most important battle, the battle for myself.
For a week, the silence from my family is absolute. It's a heavy, loaded quiet, not a peaceful one. It's the silence of a chessboard after a shocking move, each side waiting for the other to reveal their next strategy. I fill the void with activity. I throw myself into my work, earning a nod of approval from my boss for a project I complete ahead of schedule. I spend my evenings at the pottery studio, the rhythmic whir of the wheel a meditative hum that drowns out the anxious chatter in my head. It's there I meet Evelyn. She's an older woman with kind eyes and hands permanently stained with the ghost of clay. She never asks about my family, but one evening, as I struggle to center a stubborn lump of porcelain, she comes over and places her hands gently over mine. "You're fighting it," she says, her voice a low murmur. "You're trying to force it into a shape it's not ready for. You have to listen to the clay, feel where it wants to go." Her words land somewhere deep inside me. I've spent my whole life forcing myself into a shape I was never meant for. The dutiful daughter, the selfless sister, the family manager. I was never listening to where my own life wanted to go. Evelyn becomes my first real friend who knows nothing of the old Clara. To her, I am just a woman learning to make pots, and the freedom in that is intoxicating. The inevitable call comes on a Saturday morning. It's Leo. His voice is tight with a forced neutrality that immediately puts me on high alert. "Hey, just wanted to let you know, Mom's going in for surgery on Wednesday." I freeze, a half-washed coffee mug in my hand. "Surgery? What for? Is she okay?" "It's her hip, the one that's been bothering her. Just a replacement. It's routine," he says quickly. Too quickly. "She'll be in the hospital overnight and then needs to be off her feet for a couple of weeks." I wait, knowing what's coming next. The unspoken expectation hangs in the air between us. "So," he continues, clearing his throat, "she'll need someone to stay with her. Dad's not great with this stuff, the cooking and everything, and Mia has that big work conference, so we were all thinking..." He trails off, leaving me to complete the sentence. "We were all thinking, Clara will do it, of course." The old script is right there on the tip of my tongue. "Of course. What time should I be there? Send me the doctor's notes." The words are a phantom limb, an echo of a person I no longer want to be. The thought of it fills me with a visceral dread. Sleeping in my childhood bed, the air thick with my mother's passive-aggressive sighs, my father's gruff commands, the endless fetching of tea and pills and blankets, my own life put on pause indefinitely. It would be more than just 2 weeks of caregiving. It would be a complete surrender.
It would be an undoing of everything I had fought for. Leo, I can't, I say. The words feel foreign in my mouth. The silence on his end is profound. What do you mean you can't? Clara, it's Mom's surgery. He says the word like a trump card, a magical incantation meant to obliterate all resistance. I understand that, and I want her to have the best care possible, which is why I am going to hire a professional post-operative caregiver for her. I've already done some research. There are agencies that provide excellent in-home nurses. I'll pay for the first 2 weeks myself. It is, I think, a more than generous offer. It is a solution. It solves the problem of her care without sacrificing me in the process. But I know, even as I say it, that it will be rejected. It was never about the problem, it was about the solution always being me. Leo scoffs, a sound of pure disbelief. A stranger? You want a stranger taking care of Mom? Clara, what is wrong with you? This is what family does. We show up. I am showing up, I counter. I am showing up as a daughter who is ensuring her mother gets professional medical care. I am not showing up as an unpaid, on-call nurse. I have a job, a life, the one you and Mia were able to build because I was busy managing yours. The conversation devolves from there. He calls me cold, selfish, unnatural. He says I'm trying to throw money at a problem that requires a heart. I tell him my heart is precisely what I'm trying to protect. He hangs up on me. The next call is from Mia. Her tone is different, pleading. Clara, please, just one time. It would mean so much to them. We can go back to whatever this is afterwards. Just be the bigger person here.
Mia, I have been the bigger person my entire life, I say, the exhaustion seeping into my bones. I was so big I cast a shadow that the rest of you got to rest in. I'm done. The offer stands. A professional caregiver. It's the best, most responsible solution for everyone. It's not a solution if it makes Mom feel like her own daughter has abandoned her, Mia cries, her voice thick with emotion. My only other option is to abandon myself, I whisper after she hangs up. The pressure is immense, a physical weight in the room. The guilt is a familiar ghost, whispering in my ear that I am a terrible person, a monstrous daughter. I almost buckle. I draft a text message 12 times. Fine, I'll do it. But I think of Evelyn's hands over mine, of the quiet in my apartment, of the simple, selfish joy of a Tuesday night spent making a lopsided bowl. I delete the text. Instead, I do exactly what I said I would. I spend the afternoon vetting home care agencies. I find one with stellar reviews and arrange for a caregiver named Rosa to be on call the day of the surgery. I pay the deposit with my credit card. It's a concrete action, a way of building a wall against the tide of their emotional demands. On the day of the surgery, I don't go to the hospital. I know it would be seen as a concession, an opening for negotiation. I would be cornered in the waiting room, my resolve worn down by the sterile smell and my mother's pained face. Instead, I send a large bouquet of flowers to her room with a card. Wishing you a speedy recovery. All your post-op care has been arranged. Rest, and let Rosa take care of everything. Love, Clara. I spend the day in a state of high anxiety, my phone buzzing incessantly. I ignore the calls from my father, my aunt, my uncle. I turn it on silent and go to the pottery studio. I need to feel the solid, unforgiving truth of the clay in my hands. Evelyn is there. She takes one look at my face and says, "Rough day?" I nod, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "Let me tell you something my therapist told me," she says, sitting at the wheel across from mine. "When you grow up in a storm, you think the chaos is normal. You learn to brace yourself against the wind, to walk at a tilt. When you finally leave the storm and stand up straight, you feel wobbly and balanced. You almost miss the wind holding you up. The quiet feels wrong. You're in the quiet now, Clara. You just have to get your balance." Her words are a lifeline. The quiet does feel wrong. My nervous system is screaming at me to run back into the storm, to the familiar chaos of their needs.
but I stay put. I make a pot, then another. They are wobbly and unbalanced, but they are whole. That evening, there's a knock at my door. It's Mia. Her face is pale and strained. "They sent me," she says, walking past me into the apartment. "They want you to fire the nurse." "No," I say simply. "Clara, you don't understand. Mom refused to let her in the house. Rosa is just sitting in her car. Dad is trying to change Mom's surgical dressing, and he has no idea what he's doing. It's a disaster." I close my eyes. Of course they would self-sabotage just to prove that their way is the only way. It's a manufactured crisis, designed to pull me back into the vortex. "This is not my problem to solve, Mia," I say, my voice harder than I intend. "It is," she insists, her voice rising. "She's our mother. She's in pain, and she's scared, and she wants her daughter." "She wants a servant she doesn't have to pay for," I shoot back. "She has her husband. She has her other 2 children. Why am I the only one who is considered her daughter in these moments? You're there. Why aren't you helping?" "I have my conference," she sputters. "I told you that. I can't just drop everything." The hypocrisy of her statement is so staggering, so utterly breathtaking, that all I can do is stare at her. The words she just said, "I can't just drop everything," are the very words I was never allowed to utter. They are the words that define a life of freedom, a life I am only just beginning to taste. "Exactly," I say, the single word landing between us with the force of a slap. I open my door. "Go home, Mia. Go to your conference. Let Dad be a husband. Let Mom learn that her children have their own lives. It's called growing up. It's long overdue for all of you." She looks at me, her face a mask of betrayal. The fragile bridge we had started to build between us has just collapsed. In her eyes, I am no longer her sister, her ally. I am the enemy once more. She walks out without another word, and as I watch her go, I feel a profound and aching loneliness. I had won. I had held the boundary. But standing alone in my quiet, sovereign apartment, it felt awful lot like I had lost.
The days that follow are a study in silence. The constant hum of family obligation that had been the background noise to my entire life is gone, and the resulting quiet is deafening. I am unmoored, a ship cut loose from its anchor, and I feel a terrifying drift. I check my phone constantly, a Pavlovian response ingrained over years of being the family's first responder. But there are no missed calls, no frantic texts. I've been removed from the family group chat. I discover this when a friend mentions a photo Mia posted of my mother, propped up in bed with a pained but stoic smile, surrounded by flowers. Not my flowers, I notice. Mine have been strategically moved out of the frame. The caption Mia wrote is a master class in passive aggression. "Mom is a fighter. So grateful for the family who have stepped up to help her recover. It's in tough times you learn who you can truly count on." The comment section is a chorus of sympathy and praise for their solidarity. I am a ghost at their feast of virtue. My absence a condemnation that speaks louder than any argument ever could. This is a new kind of warfare, more sophisticated than the direct assaults. They are erasing me. They are editing the family photo album in real time, cutting out the inconvenient figure who refused to play her part. And it works. The guilt is a physical thing, a sickness in my stomach. I lie awake at night picturing my father fumbling with bandages, my mother trying to hide a wince of pain. Am I the monster they're painting me as? Did I abandon them in their moment of need? The story is so compelling, so simple. I almost believe it myself. My birthday arrives in the middle of this Cold War. It has always been a mandatory family event, usually a dinner at my parents' house where I was expected to be graciously thankful for a celebration I had little say in. This year, the day is marked by a profound and absolute silence. No calls, no cards, no perfunctory happy birthday text from Leo. It's a deliberate, coordinated shunning. A punishment. They have taken away their presence, assuming it's the one thing I could never bear to lose. The strange thing is, after the initial sting of hurt, a different feeling emerges. Relief. I don't have to perform gratitude. I don't have to spend the evening managing my father's moods and my mother's unspoken expectations. The day is a blank canvas. It's mine. I wake up and go for a long walk in the crisp autumn air. I buy myself a ridiculously expensive coffee and a pastry. I spend the afternoon at the pottery studio. When Evelyn sees me, she smiles. "You look different today. Lighter." "It's my birthday," I say, the words feeling new. "Well, happy birthday," she says, wiping her clay-covered hands on her apron. "Any big plans?" "No," I reply, and the word is full of peace. No plans at all. We work in comfortable silence for a while, the only sound the soft whir of our wheels. Later, while we're waiting for our pieces to fire in the kiln, she turns to me. My mother hasn't spoken to me in 7 years. Not since I told her my husband and I were moving here, away from her. She told me I was choosing a man over my own blood. For years, every holiday, every birthday was just silence. At first it felt like a punishment. Then I realized it was a gift. The gift of peace. It's an expensive gift, though. It costs you the family you thought you had. She looks at me, her gaze clear and steady. But it gives you the space to build the one you need. That night, I invite Evelyn over for takeout and a bottle of wine. We sit on my floor, surrounded by my lopsided pots, and we talk. For the first time, I tell someone the whole story, from the color-coded laundry charts of my childhood to the invoice on the coffee table. She listens without judgment, without offering platitudes. When I'm done, a weight I didn't know I was still carrying has lifted.
"You're not a monster, Clara," she says softly, topping up my wine glass. "You're a woman who is finally billing for her services." The stalemate breaks 2 weeks later. The call is from a number I don't recognize. It's a social worker from the hospital. "Am I speaking with Clara?" she asks, her voice professional but kind. "I'm calling about your mother, Catherine. She was discharged 10 days ago after a hip replacement, but she was readmitted this morning with a serious infection at the incision site." The floor seems to drop out from under me. An infection? Is she okay? She's on intravenous antibiotics, and the doctor is optimistic. But in speaking with her, it seems there's been some confusion about her post-operative care. She mentioned her husband was managing it, but he appears to have misunderstood the instructions on cleaning the wound. "Clara, your name is listed as her primary emergency contact and healthcare proxy. We tried to reach you when she was admitted, but your father insisted we call him instead." The pieces click into place with a sickening finality. Their pride, their stubborn refusal to accept the professional help I'd arranged, my father's incompetence, my mother's martyrdom. They had manufactured a crisis, and it had spiraled into a real one. They had put her health at risk simply to prove a point. The anger that rises in me is cold and pure. It burns away all the guilt, all the self-doubt. "I'm on my way," I say, my voice ablade. When I walk into the hospital room, it's a tableau of their dysfunction. My father is slumped in a chair, looking defeated and small. Leo is pacing by the window, talking animatedly on his phone about a work deadline. Mia is there, painting my mother's nails, a desperate attempt to create a facade of normalcy over the terrifying reality of the IV stand next to the bed. My mother looks pale and fragile, a shadow of her usually formidable self. They all look up when I enter. A wave of complicated emotions washes over their faces: relief, shame, resentment. I ignore all of them and walk directly to my mother's bedside. I take her hand. It feels frail in mine. "How are you feeling?" I ask, my voice gentle. Tears well in her eyes. "It hurts, Clara," she whispers. It's the most honest, vulnerable thing she said to me in years. I turn to my father. What did the doctor say? He clears his throat, unable to meet my eyes. They have to monitor her for a few days. The infection. It's deep. And what was the plan for her care when she's discharged this time? I ask, my gaze sweeping over all of them. Leo has ended his call. Mia has stopped painting. The room is silent. Well, we were hoping, my father begins. No, I say, cutting him off. It's not a harsh word, but it is absolute. We are not hoping. We are planning. I am her healthcare proxy, and this is what is going to happen. I pull out my phone and dial the number for the home care agency. I speak to the receptionist, my voice calm and authoritative, rebooking Rosa and adding a second nurse for overnight shifts for the first week. I hang up and look at my family. Rosa will be at your house when she is discharged. Her instructions will be followed to the letter. None of you will interfere. I will be managing her care, but I will be doing it from my home by coordinating with her medical team and the professionals we are paying to be there. This is not a negotiation. My father opens his mouth to object, but my mother squeezes my hand. Okay, Clara. She whispers. Okay. It's a surrender, not just to me, but to the reality of the situation. For the first time, her need was greater than her pride. I stay for another hour, speaking with the doctor, taking notes, ensuring I understand the treatment plan. I act not as the dutiful daughter, but as a competent manager handling a crisis. It's the same role, but the motivation is different. I'm not doing it for their approval. I'm doing it for my mother's health, separating the person from the dysfunctional dynamic. As I'm about to leave, Mia follows me into the hallway. The conference was a bust, she says quietly, staring at the polished linoleum floor. I was so worried about Mom the whole time I couldn't concentrate. And Leo, he was supposed to take over for Dad for 2 days, but he said a work thing came up. He never even showed up. She looks at me, her eyes filled with a new, weary understanding. It was always you. We just let it be you. We never even saw it as a choice. It was just Clara's job. It's no one's job. It's a responsibility that's meant to be shared. Or, when it's too much, it's meant to be delegated to people who are qualified. We stand in the quiet hum of the hospital corridor. The chasm between us is still there, but for the first time, it feels like we're both looking across it, finally seeing the same thing. It is not a happy ending. It is a fragile, painful, and complicated beginning, but for the first time, it feels real.
The true test comes 3 months later, with the approach of Thanksgiving. The invitation is delivered by Mia, who meets me for coffee, our new fragile ritual. She slides an envelope across the table, avoiding my eyes. Mom wants to host dinner. She says she wants everyone there. No pressure, though. She adds quickly, a phrase never before uttered in our family's vocabulary. I told them you might have other plans. The gesture is significant. It's an invitation, not a summons. The inclusion of an out, no pressure, is a seismic shift in our family's tectonic plates. I think of Evelyn, who is spending the holiday with her own chosen family of fellow artists. She had already invited me. I have a choice. For the first time, the path of least resistance isn't capitulation. It's a polite refusal. But as I look at Mia, I see the genuine hope in her eyes, mixed with a fear of my rejection. I realize I don't want to hide anymore. Boundaries aren't about building permanent walls. They're about installing gates that you can choose to open. I'll come, but I can only stay for a couple of hours. I'm setting my terms, and she is accepting them. She nods, a small, relieved smile touching her lips. Okay, that's great, Clara. Walking up to my parents' front door on Thanksgiving feels like approaching the scene of a battle long after the fighting has stopped. The air is still, and the ground is forever changed.
I'm holding a bottle of wine in one hand and a small, beautifully glazed vase in the other, a piece I made myself. A gift that is truly from me, not an object of obligation. I brace myself for the familiar tension, the unspoken accusations. But when the door opens, the scene inside is different. It's quieter. My father is in the kitchen, awkwardly trying to mash potatoes. He nods at me, a simple, non-performative greeting. My mother is sitting at the dining room table, directing him, but her tone lacks its usual sharp, critical edge. She looks tired, but genuinely happy to see me. "Clara, that's beautiful," she says, her eyes on the vase. There's no subtext, no hint that it's not as nice as something store-bought. It's a simple, honest compliment. Dinner is a strange affair. The conversation is stilted at times, as we all navigate the new, unwritten rules. Leo tries to bring up a complaint about his landlord, clearly hoping I'll offer to read his lease agreement. Before I can even formulate a polite refusal, Mia cuts in. "Leo, you're a grown man. You can call the housing authority yourself." Leo looks stunned, but he drops it. My father starts to complain about a confusing letter from their insurance company, then stops himself, glancing at me. He sighs and says, "I'll call them on Monday." They are learning. Slowly, painfully, they are learning to carry their own weight. I find myself observing them, not as their manager, but as a visitor. I see my mother's fatigue, my father's anxiety, Leo's immaturity, Mia's struggle to find her own voice. But I see them without the crushing weight of responsibility. They are just people, flawed and difficult, and for the first time, their problems are not my own. The detachment is a profound relief. After dinner, as I'm getting ready to leave, my mother follows me to the hall. "Rosa was a wonderful nurse," she says quietly, her back to me as she straightens a picture on the wall. "She was very kind. Thank you for arranging that, Clara." It's the closest to an apology I will ever get, and it is more than enough. It is an admission, an acknowledgement that my solution, the one she fought so hard against, was the right one. "You're welcome, Mom." She turns, and for a moment I see the ghost of the mother I always wished I had, one who could see me as a person, not a function. "Your pottery, it's very good. You seem happy." I am. And the truth of the word settles deep in my bones. I drive away from their house as the sun sets, the sky streaked with orange and pink. I am not driving away from a fight. I am not escaping. I am simply leaving one part of my life to go to another. The two are no longer in conflict. I meet Evelyn and her friends for dessert. They are loud and funny, and they ask me about my art. They don't ask me about my family. Around their table, I am not a daughter or a sister. I'm just Clara. And I realize the invoice I presented my family all those months ago was never about the money. It was about being seen, about having the invisible work of my life acknowledged. The final payment on that bill wasn't an apology or a check. It was this moment. The quiet, simple, extraordinary freedom of being myself. My past is no longer a debt I am forced to pay, but a story I have survived. And my future is a blank page, waiting for me to write it. Breaking free from a role you've played your whole life is a messy, painful, and often thankless journey. It requires you to disappoint people you love, to endure their anger, and to stand firm in the lonely space of your own truth. But on the other side of that struggle is something invaluable: peace. The peace of living a life that is authentically your own. If you are fighting a similar battle in your own life, please know that you are not alone, and your well-being matters. Your story deserves to be heard. Share a part of your journey in the comments below, because your courage could be the spark someone else needs to light their own way. Thank you for being here and for listening. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share. Let's continue to have these important conversations together.